In the realm of custom home building, every detail matters, but one often overlooked crucial detail is the use of 5/8 inch drywall in most custom building applications. Today, we're going to cover some of the nuances of why it's important to use 5/8 inch drywall, the benefits thereof. Let's get to it. So before I dive directly into our topic today of drywall, I do want to touch on something that I mentioned at the very entrance of this video, which is every detail matters. And while drywall is often an overlooked piece of the overall construction process, I do want to mention that a good concrete company is going to allow for a good framing detail. A good framing company is going to allow us to get to a point where we can have a solid drywall crew come in and be able to complete the task as needed, not only efficiently and effectively, but at the quality and level that we require at our company. But the drywaller can only do his job correctly if the previous trades come in and accomplish their task on point, allowing them to be able to have a clean palette to work with. So I guess the real question is, with the most common standard thicknesses being 1/2 inch drywall and 5/8 inch drywall, why does 1/8 inch thickness matter so much? Well, on its own, 1/8 is obviously a pretty minuscule number, but it's 25% more material in any given sheet, which provides for more rigidity, but it also provides for better fire protection, as most contractors and hopefully homeowners understand that a 5/8 inch sheetrock typically has an X rating, which allows it to be able to be used for fire rated assemblies that are required specifically between usually the garage and the home. So while 5/8 is typically used in the garage space, the reality is when you use it across the whole home, there are multiple benefits and advantages that you should be thinking of when building your custom home. So what exactly does that 1/8 inch extra drywall get you? Well, I want to break it into 3 main categories. First is going to be the fire rated properties that are associated with 5/8 inch drywall. Second is going to be the soundproofing that helps to keep your home not only quieter inside, but also helps to divide your spaces appropriately so sound transfer isn't the norm within the home. And third, better rigidity and shear value for the overall structure of the home, which leads to multiple benefits when finishing or texturing your wall system. So we're currently standing in our garage space, and I want to cover our fire rated details here because it's pretty standard in most homes across the US that if you want a fire rated detail, you're going to start with 5/8 inch X rated gypsum. And in this case, we have a 5/8 inch on the interior wall of our garage as well as the interior space of our home, which allows for a 1-hour fire rating. Now, what I find interesting that comes into play when talking about our garage space is that we also have to have a fire rated door. It's one of the reasons why we have to have self-closing doors for any entry into the home from the garage space, because usually there's a workshop or there's additional potential for having chemicals or things that can start a fire here in the garage. And so the benefits of being able to have that not only in the garage space, but throughout the home, I think would prove to be beneficial within any home, especially given the fact that we live here in the desert. And occasionally you're gonna see neighborhood fires that flare up. It's gonna help provide more protection in the long run for your investment in your property. So out of the 3 things that we're gonna discuss today, the fire rating is one of the things that revolve around safety. The others are gonna be more convenience and overall finish. But it's absolutely critical if you want the safest possible house to be built by American standards with lumber, so on and so forth. I know there's a lot of European followers that say that we build with paper, but nonetheless, if we're doing traditional stick frame construction, fire rated assembly will obviously help in the long run to be able to ensure safety for your family and friends that reside within your home. So the second item that we're going to talk about is soundproofing. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, well, like what soundproofing properties does it have? Well, it has a more dense structure, which will allow for less sound to be able to travel through the walls. Now, I will say that this is minimal benefit, but it is a true benefit that adds to the overall reason why you should consider utilizing this in your custom build. Now, for all intents and purposes, we also put batting in all of the walls to be able to divide a lot of the spaces, especially the living spaces. And now we've adopted where we put batting in all interior walls to be able to help even deaden that sound even more. There's obviously some very intense methodologies that you go to soundproofing your house as well. But I do think where 5/8 inch drywall helps the most is on the ceiling cavities, because most people don't have a large amount of insulation in their attic at the sheetrock level anymore. When applying spray foam, it's actually at the roof deck. And so you are gonna have some sound deadening that happens in the ceiling cavity, which is where a lot of sound travel could happen through the trusses into other rooms. But that extra 1/8 inch, that extra 5/8 inch drywall that you decide to utilize for your build can really make a difference in this application. So the third I want to talk about is the rigidity of the overall material. Like I said, it does have additional shear value in 5/8 inch drywall. In fact, there's times where we actually have a shear wall that's called out in 5/8 inch drywall as required by the structural engineer. And so now by having all 5/8 inch drywall, we never have to deal with some of those interior shear walls that might be called out. But the flatness and the rigidity is the second component of that. The reality is that we do frame with standard 2x4s and 2x6s. And there are a lot of inconsistencies with this type of fast growth lumber that we work with. Regardless of whether you're a production home builder or you're building custom homes, usually you don't have the budget to jump into like an LVL stud or a higher quality lumber for your framing. And in this case, what it allows is it allows to be able to be more rigid and smooth out any of the imperfections of the individual framing members that run from our base plate to our top plate, allowing us to be able to have a much smoother and consistent finish when we get to texturing, where they could be able to float out any of those minor imperfections that might take place with the imperfect lumber that we have to deal with in today's building industry. What this really allows is for nice, crisp, and clean lines, allowing us to be able to get great corner bead details, and for more modern detailing, allows for cleaner looks in areas such as this drywall that rolls into the casement of this window, or at our kerf jam detail that we discussed in a previous video that's so important at each and every individual doorway. Basically, you have a cleaner, thicker reveal that allows for your trim work to turn out fantastic. So if you have any interest in discussing the benefits and the things that you should look out for baseboard, ceiling details, and cabinetry, go check out our previous episode. So overall, in my opinion, and the opinion of many other contractors across the nation, would be that you get a better fit and finish when it comes to being able to use a more rigid substrate that allows you to be able to have the clean lines that I think everyone's looking for, regardless of whether you're building a modern, traditional, or contemporary home. So after covering the three main benefits, we hope that if you're building a custom home, that you talk to your builder about the nuances of this very slight change in the overall scope of work. But lastly, I'd like to talk just briefly about some of the costs associated. It's a lot less than what you might think. I mean, obviously, there could be a wide variance in the quality of the overall installation of the sheetrock companies that might be used by an individual builder. But at the end of the day, a 5/8 versus a 1/2 inch drywall is usually only going to be, somewhere between $3,000 to call it $15,000 extra, depending on the size of the overall home and how much sheetrock's being used. And it's definitely something that you should probably take into consideration if you're looking to build something that's going to last the test of time. We appreciate you following along our channel. Please subscribe below. DM us if you have any questions. And as always, have a great day.